this is the Surly Grognards for February 2nd, 2015. Happy Groundhog Day, Eric.
Oh, yeah. Does this mean we're going to have to repeat the episode?
I don't know. Did Bill Murray come out and see his shadow?
I don't know. I think the more important question is, does Bill Murray still think he's God?
I have no idea. Anyways, this is Peter Bowman, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. So, how are you doing tonight, Eric, other than being frozen?
I'm doing all right.
Well, I imagine you're not frozen since you're not currently outside.
Yeah, I'm not currently outside.
So you're not frozen or buried in snow.
Bah, friggin'... I care not for your snow. I don't even have the heat turned on.
Really?
I have the heat turned on.
Thought so.
I have roommates. Of course the heat's turned on.
Oh, God. Yeah, we've gotten a bit of snow here in the Boston area.
Yeah, not as bad as, like, friggin', Buffalo a month or two ago. But
oh,
yeah,
God, they got completely buried.
Yeah, like...
Like, literally.
Yeah.
Woo! Now,
we kind of got hit by two decent storms in a row.
Yeah.
So
the big storm hit us with about 2 feet.
yeah.
I know we've gotten a bit more since then. Anywho, because of that, I'm kind of glad we actually decided to do what we decided to do this week, which is we're going to be doing another live brainstorming campaign design brainstorming session.
Woo!
Because the last one was a lot of fun, and I thought it went really well. And I thought this would be something to do again. It's been a couple months since we did that one, and astonishingly. And I thought this time we'd go for a slightly different style of game. Because, we did a fantasy game last time, and so I figured this time we do sci-fi.
Hooray, sci-fi.
Because we both love sci-fi. We both love sci-fi.
As any right-thinking man does.
Okay, sure. But we both love science fiction. We both love we both really like science fiction role-playing games too.
Yes. Not nearly as many of those as there are for fantasy, though.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I've always found interesting. It's interesting because there's more there are more fantasy games, but there seems to be more science fiction actual fiction.
Yeah.
And it tends to be more popular too.
I think part of that has to do with the fact that there's a shared expectations with fantasy. There are going to be elves, there are going to be dwarves, there are going to be orcs. It's going to be Dark Ages to Renaissance tech level. There's something like pre-baked there to build your game system off of.
Okay. Whereas sci-fi is
so much more wide open.
Yeah.
Which makes it more attractive to writers who don't have to worry about actual systems. They just need to make sure everything's internally consistent.
Right.
Good ones do, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, at the same time, though, that does mean, because there's so much science fiction out there, there's a lot of fiction out there to mine ideas from.
Yes. Absolutely.
Which is why I've always sort of been perplexed by the lack of sci-fi, why there's so much less sci-fi than there is fantasy.
But at the same time, you see, how is there not a decent Star Trek role-playing game out there? There have been a couple really terrible ones, but there isn't a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, there's the fact that there's no Mass Effect role-playing game still blows my mind.
Still shocks me. Mass Effect is such a great world. I would love to do more in that at the tabletop.
It's like there's a Dragon Age role-playing game, but there's no Mass Effect game.
Yeah.
There's a bloody Warcraft tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, that's based off of
D20.
3.5, and that was from a few years ago when 3.5, like, there was a version of everything in 3.5.
Oh yeah, the D20 system being open source meant that a lot of people sort of came up with their campaign rules and said, "Ooh, I don't have to write a system. One exists,
Yes.
and it's popular, and everyone's heard of it."
It's popular, everyone's heard of it, and everyone's at least marginally familiar with it. Because it's fucking Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. I completely understand why they did that. I didn't necessarily agree with the design decision for some of them, but, meh, not my problem.
Yeah, like, I don't see how you can do Firefly in 3.5, and I know I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. So...
Or at least not and have it feel Firefly-y.
That's sort of my thing. I don't know. At any rate, my first sort of thought on this for the brainstorming session is I would suspect we're not going to actually... Last time we sort of decided we were going to do sort of a D&D type game.
Right.
Sort of focus on D&D because that meant that there was a sort of common language that anyone could understand.
Exactly, like I said earlier.
Right. We don't really have that option here.
Right.
So...
Things are much more wide open.
Picking a system doesn't really matter that much with this. I mean...
Yeah, I mean mechanics will inform things, but, like, just most generic systems will fit this, I think is what
yeah, basically, if for some reason you've listened to the campaign idea and decide you want to run a game using it, go for it.
Yeah, totally cool with that.
And pick a system you think will fit it. That's my take on it.
We are not going to send lawyers with cease and desist letters because
that
would be silly. I'm not sure how we'd figure out that you were doing it, and it seems like a waste of money
and time and effort.
Although it would be silly.
No, not really.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth the resources for the comedic value, honestly.
No, not even a little bit. So, also, honestly, be a scummy thing to do.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question I have before we really start diving into this is, do we want to just work on a universe, or are we going to work on a campaign idea within a universe?
They're almost one and the same, aren't they?
Well...
Because you need a universe before you can have a campaign.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, do we want to focus on a smaller subset of the universe with like a particular campaign focusing on a particular area in a sci-fi universe, or do we want to go big and build an entire sort of game universe?
Well, let's start with the universe and see where we go. All right. Because my first question is, what's the tech level?
That wasn't actually my first. Well, my first question it sort of informs the tech level, I think.
Right.
Is how big a scope of a universe do we want to do? I mean, because sci-fi can happen on a lot of different scales.
Unless you're going like full on like ancient and learned galactic civilization a la Uplift, we're going to probably stay at least in the galaxy, probably closer to like the local cluster of stars and shit.
Well, yeah, I was thinking basically, do we want it to be interstellar? Is the first question.
Yeah.
Because, there's a big difference between doing an interstellar game and something that's sort of locked within one solar system or even on a single planet.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing that one open to you, honestly.
I'm more inclined to go interstellar, honestly.
Okay. We'll go interstellar.
Because once we start closing in more on that, it starts to... I start deviating more towards established genres.
Okay.
Like cyberpunk or fucking Gundam or something like that.
All right.
Gundam being a genre unto itself, I've just decided. Kind of is, honestly.
All right. So we're going to go interstellar. Okay, so my next question for you, Eric, and this is one that will be, I think, important.
Okay.
Is all right, so the next question is, how prevalent are non-human species? I mean, humans are going to be a thing because it's hard to do a sci-fi RPG without having humans in it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mostly because, all of us who are playing in this will be human. So
or very advanced chatbots.
right, exactly.
Um,
So that not having the humans in there sort of seems odd.
Now, you don't necessarily need sapient alien species in your sci-fi.
I agree completely. You could do
vehicles.
great things with just humanity.
Yeah, I mean, just look at MechWarrior. I mean, MechWarrior is a perfectly viable world to play in without the mechs. You're not keeping me away from the mechs. You can't show me the candy and tell me I can't have it. But
but
it is perfectly viable to do a game without mechs in the MechWarrior
in the BattleTech universe. Yeah, I agree completely. There have been plenty of sci-fi universes that have just humans, or humans and maybe one other alien species.
Yeah. But at the same time, aliens are fucking cool.
Right. So the question is, do we want how humanocentric do we want the universe to be?
That is a good question. Like how prevalent do we want humans to be? Do we want them just to be another carbon-based, bilaterally symmetrical species amongst dozens with no particular significance beyond that, or do we want them to be like some big, like, system-spanning empire of monolithic proportion, like in the Traveler universe, or do we want them to be the equivalent of space gypsies?
Right, or do we want them to be relative newcomers on the galactic stage? Is another possibility.
Yeah, like again, Uplift or Mass Effect,
or Babylon 5 for that matter.
Yeah, let's start with B5 because they're actually afforded a modicum of respect.
They are, but they're still relative newcomers. Is the thing.
That's true.
They're one of they have managed to become one of the big dogs and sort of on the big man on the block. But
yeah, because they beat up space Nazis.
Yeah, and then
everybody likes it when you beat up space Nazis.
They crushed the space Nazis, and
that's true.
And then the Minbari attacked them and surrendered, and that never happened. That had never happened before.
It also makes no sense. Even when you know the reasons, it makes no sense. The Minbari are just fucking crazy.
Given their society, I kind of understand the logic behind why they said, "Oh crap, we can't keep attacking humanity. This is stupid. This is a terrible idea."
No, it was basically just the priests whipping out their dicks and going, "No, we say stop." The end.
Well, that is entirely what it is. It was the religious cast going, "We can't do this. It's a terrible idea," and the other two casts going, "Well, they're convinced. I guess."
I guess so. Fine.
Also, this war started for really stupid reasons. So fine, sure.
Be that way. Mew mew mew. I'm gonna go back to building skyscrapers for you two wankers.
So yeah, so that's the question. Is I'm guessing we definitively want aliens, is what it sounds like.
Yes, okay. Because aliens are fucking cool.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
And I need some kind of space monster.
All right, so we got aliens.
Something that I don't see done very often in a lot of science fiction is that there is no special significance placed upon humanity.
Okay.
Like, there's a little bit of that in Star Wars, but both the Republic and the Empire are very humanocentric. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of humanity being just another carbon-based life form in a galaxy teeming with them.
Okay, that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. Do we want to go with humans? Sort of. Here's the thing. My one thought is one of the things I've always found interesting, which doesn't happen very often, and it's sort of one of the sort of general assumptions in most sci-fi games, is humans sort of the default average.
Right.
And sort of humans are sort of bland and vanilla. Their big advantage. They're very flexible.
Mm.
The question is, so do we want humanity? So humanity is not one of the big one. Is just we'll quote just another sort of species on the block.
Right.
The question is every race has to have their sort of big They all have their
They're
own
cooking.
reputation. They're cooking their reputation. And the question is, sort of, where does humanity fit into that thing? I mean, and one of the things that we rarely see is humanity. Humanity never seems to excel over any of the other over the rest of the species in any one area, as a general rule of thumb in sci-fi. At least not in any sort of obvious way.
I'm gonna pull a page from that old I think it was Tumblr, or maybe it was Reddit. I don't know, that old thread about humanity being fucking scary.
Yes,
I
that
think
is kind of where I was
the
going.
fucking beat stick of this galaxy.
That is exactly what I was thinking. Is humanity is not one of the major powers, but that's because everyone basically sort of placates them to a certain degree. Like, nobody wants to poke humanity with a stick.
Holy crap, you can shoot them in the arm and they won't die of shock.
Right.
What the fuck is that?
And they may not be the only species that, out there that are like that. Like,
yeah, in fact, I'm going to recommend that there's at least one other that's actually tougher than humanity, but I don't know, maybe dumber.
They might be tougher in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, so, so yes, humanity basically is I'm thinking they're relatively younger compared to most other species, but humanity's, for various reasons, we'll get to that later, humanity is considered one of the more, the species you don't
the more combat viable species.
You don't fuck with them militarily.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons. And we'll come back to whatever those reasons could be, because those sort of things pop up in different ways in science fiction that have before. Niven had his own variant on that.
Yeah.
It turns out, humanity is physically inferior to the Kazin. The Kazin could not hope to beat them in a war. Because humanity is just better at it.
I've been reading a lot of uplift novels lately, and the whole, like, humanity gets by purely in improvisation, which in the stagnant galactic society is like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, apparently 1 + 1 = 2, right? Yeah, so what if we add another 1? You get 3.
Fuck!
Oh.
Why didn't we think of that? So, yeah, so humanity is, again, you don't poke humanity with the stick. is sort of one of the... So, and I like the idea that there's at least one other species that other species have that feeling about it. It's like, no, we don't poke them with a stick.
Yeah.
They'll do awful things.
I think one of the things is that one of the initial wars against humanity that's still spoken of in hushed whispers is humanity nearly wiped out whoever attacked them. Doesn't matter who started the fight.
Right.
Then they put them back together again.
I like it.
They're like, okay, so let's start rebuilding your infrastructure. You nearly wiped us out. Well, yeah, but you pissed us off. But we're done now.
Yeah, and
it'd be dumb to wipe you out. That's ridiculous. We're going to trade now. What? Humanity breaks stuff and then trades with you.
All right, so we got that. So that's some aspects of humanity. So we've got an interaction. One of the things we've presumed then is that there's interaction between various alien species, and that as a general rule of thumb, there's conflict to some degree, because obviously, if there is no major general sort of conflict that happens from time to time between the alien species, there'd be no reason to be worried about poking humanity with a stick.
Right.
So, okay, so presume some sort of conflict between the various species, so we don't have one big unified government.
Yeah, I kind of almost want to see it as Galactic Wild West. You have a lot, or Dark Ages Europe. You have a lot of like little galactic fiefdoms that will trade and make war with one another and like that sort of deal. But things are a lot more cosmopolitan than, say, either of those.
Yeah, so bizarrely, and I think this is partially due to my sort of, what I've read and watched, what I'm thinking is we've got there's a bunch of alien species out there, and they all have their own sort of, And they may, and they all have their own little sort of galactic governments.
Right.
And as a general, and this is sort of leading into sort of where I'm sort of thinking things are going. There's been some sort of accord started, sort of something equivalent to the United Nations type thing.
Okay.
Sort of a diplomatic center on like some unimportant planet somewhere. That's
We'll call it OA because I said so.
For now, sure. Where basically they all send ambassadors to basically try to, as a way to sort of diffuse possible future conflict between them, because every time major conflict has come up, it's not gone well for
anyone,
for someone
yeah.
involved. It's like this is, we got to stop this because it's something. Things could go really badly, and it's like all of our technology's gotten to the point where if serious wars happen, it could seriously come close. Like the whole war between humanity and that alien species. It's not just that humanity, beat them and then built them back up. That confuses people. But what people have really scared is the realization that another species was almost entirely wiped out.
We could have something the equivalent of a recently discovered destructive technology that's akin to, say, the atom bomb.
Something along those lines. That's entirely possible.
Like, I don't know, like a boson-graviton collapser.
The actual technology doesn't really matter right now. We'll come to that.
Yeah, and I totally just pulled out useless techno-babble out of my ass.
But,
Been watching Star Trek Voyager. Happens a lot.
Yeah. But it's not even just that. It's not just necessarily the technology. It's that one particular technology's done that. It's that the realization is that humanity basically the humans, whatever we end up calling them, they went through a war. They utterly and completely crushed the military of this other species, and could have wiped them out, and chose not to. And so there's that concept of, okay, wow, they're rebuilding them and are trading them. That's really weird, and we're kind of confused by that. But there's also that sneaky suspicion that, wait, they really could have just wiped them out. And we have to make sure that we don't put any species in a position where that could happen again. We really need to find a way to avoid that.
You know what I like the idea of?
What?
The conflict with the point where most other species would have stopped. A few others would have kept going. But humanity has turned it into a war of attrition. Everyone's like, but what the hell? You're nearly wiped out, but we still have 2 ships, and you've only got 3.
Maybe. I don't know. Again, something we'll think about. We'll come back to that. But but I'm going back to the reason for why they've formed this sort of Council of Nations type thing is specifically to avoid the possibility, the realization that, wow, a serious conflict between two significant powers could lead to one of them being completely wiped out, and the other possibly being damaged to the point where they could be wiped out quickly thereafter by someone else.
Right.
And that is just not good. We need to. It's illogical, and it could lead to real serious problems.
What you're saying is you want a dupe. You want a dupe from Futurama. The enemies, you know where you stand. With neutral, who knows?
So yeah, all right. So we got that. That's sort of central conceit, and then we've got we got several alien powers, various sorts. Amongst whom are humanity's one of them.
Right.
And they've decided to form a sort of, as I said, a Council of Nations type thing on some planet somewhere, or maybe a space station, or anything like that. Who knows? Who knows? The actual meeting point could move between various species capitals for every year.
Right.
That's not important. I like having that sort of a central location just because it means that that's a good place to sort of have a campaign set.
Okay, you could. Okay, I see what you're saying. Something similar to like the Citadel from Mass Effect or Babylon 5 from Babylon
exactly.
5. Okay.
Like honestly, like looking at Mass Effect, Like a role play. How awesome could you? How awesome role play campaign you have that's just set entirely on the Citadel. On the Citadel.
Oh, it could be pretty awesome, actually.
Right, because it's this gigantic space station with like huge numbers of people all over the place with like so
Tons of different species roaming about.
And so many different types of areas on the station too. I mean,
yeah, and yeah, just to do a campaign where you're all CSEC officers, and yeah,
or there's all sorts of different things you could do.
Or a crime campaign where you're gangsters on the Citadel.
Right. Exactly. Or people who are like working as attachés for the various diplomats.
Yeah.
And how they have to interact with each other. And
or maybe they're free traders, and the Citadel is just the most convenient place to unload their cargo.
Oh, exactly. There's all sorts of things you could do with that. So that's why I like having the idea of that sort of centralized location, because it gives this giant, very metropolitan area where almost anything could happen.
Okay. That makes sense.
I just like it from a role-playing campaign, sort of as a one possible like major mega location, and like even if the campaign's not set there, it's a useful place to be able to go to.
Mm.
All right, so we got that sort of basic framework there, and we'll get to the species and other stuff a bit later, because that's less important than my next question, actually. All right, we've got an interstellar campaign. What method of faster-than-light travel do we want to use? Because without faster-than-light travel, this sort of campaign doesn't work nearly as well.
It's true. Like, even if you, even cryo-freezing slow ships just does not work for this kind of campaign.
No.
Yeah, so what do we...
So the question
hyperspace, warp jump, gates, what do we use?
So there are a bunch of different... There's some points. So there's jump gates of various sorts. There's hyperspace, which is these are the classics here.
Yeah.
Jump drives or warp drive, effectively, are the major sort of... the four major concepts that I've seen. Effectively, and jump gates, that could be anything from you build jump gates so you can travel between them, to naturally occurring wormholes that you can travel between.
Hyperspace and warp drive sort of fall into the same realm.
They don't, though. Warp drive.
Yeah, because hyperspace involves slipping into a different dimension, and warp drive.
It's much harder to interact with ships traveling at FTL if they're in hyperspace than if they're traveling through warp.
Let's do warp drive because you can do wacky stuff that way.
Okay, warp drive. I was thinking either warp drive or a combination of slow hyperspace plus jump gates.
Mm.
Like you can travel through hyperspace, but it's much slower than actually going between constructed jump gates. Not that that's actually that's basically instantaneous travel.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's do warp drive, but like there are like spacefold.
So there are
gates.
natural wormholes that give you instantaneous travel between 2 points.
Or you can build a gate, but it's such a massive undertaking, financially and technologically, that a lot of people don't bother. So only have them at major ports of call.
Okay.
Like the aforementioned Citadel, for lack of a better term.
All right, I like it. Yeah, okay, we can go with that. So warp drive is easier, is more cost efficient.
Yes.
Than building jump gates.
Sort of like air travel at the beginning of the 20th century.
All right.
Like World War, like between World War I and World War II, when aviation was really starting to take off. It was, wow, aviation is this really cool thing. It's just really expensive.
Okay, I like it. My gut feeling on the warp gate thing is I think that it's probably based off naturally occurring wormholes where you can travel between them also.
Okay.
Warp gates the reason that building them is so expensive is you're trying to recreate an exceptionally rare natural phenomenon that nobody fully understands.
Mm.
Or very few people fully understand. So it's very hard and expensive, but the naturally occurring wormholes are how people originally got around between stars.
Right.
Before they discovered warp drives. It's like, so they've got like the...
Holy crap, it can totally bend the nature of the universe by doing this thing.
Right. And who knows? Maybe the technology, maybe the wormhole, like studying the wormholes and developing the technology to build gates, is what led to the possibility of warp drive. They realized that something in the nature of whatever it is, gravitational effects, let's say, that create the wormholes, on a lesser scale allowed you to basically warp space around ships and effectively travel faster than the speed of light.
Mm.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know how much sense it makes. I don't really care right now.
Yeah, it doesn't particularly matter.
We're not. I think that we've just answered a question that I hadn't asked yet. That is, how much of a sort of hard sci-fi game are we going for? And the answer is, as long as we're internally consistent.
As long as it's internally consistent, I think
we don't care.
That does bring up an interesting question, though. Like, conflict is going to happen in an RPG. So, what kind of weapons tech are we looking at?
Right. That's actually a really good question.
Because there is so many different ways we can go with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned gravitational things, right?
Yeah, I did. That was only because I mentioned that because I was like, well, I guess gravity could cause like the rifts, eventually cause the gravitational effects could cause wormhole like effects, and I guess could also lead to sort of using gravity to warp space around you to effectively travel faster than the speed of light. So sure.
So this is going to sound a little bit like cribbing a bit from Mass Effect, and if you're going to crib from the best. But what about they're using slug throwers only instead of chemically propelled? It's more like a graviton railgun.
Okay, so that's
which allows all sorts of different types of materials to be used as projectiles.
Right. So that's a common weapon type at this point.
Yeah.
So I imagine we've got those, probably laser weapons also.
Yeah, because you can't have a good space opera without lasers.
Well, no. I guess we're sort of delving into space opera all of a sudden, but
I was just going to say, lasers are so iconic, they have to be in there.
Well, no, I have no problem dipping into space opera. I was thinking about it. We've actually been dipping into there already anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, you gotta have the laser weapons because duh.
Right.
And various gravitic assisted weaponry. Okay. I'm liking it.
Yeah, like laser weapons are more accurate, but your average
also
gravitic railgun instead has so many different weapon types it can do, and probably does more damage on the whole.
Well, and there's also the fact that the laser weapons don't really... with the grav weapons, you have to worry about the power supply and your ammunition.
That's true.
Whereas the laser, all you have to worry about is your power supply.
That is true, yeah.
So there's some, lasers are popular also because it makes logistics easier, still. Like that. That's good.
So what about melee combat here? Are we going to have, we should have vibro weapons.
Sure. I'm as a general rule of thumb, melee weapons are generally not going to be as, sort of, once range weapons become as good as they probably are at this point, melee becomes less necessary.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they probably haven't gone too much past vibro weapon type weapons because it's just not necessary.
Yeah, I'll totally agree with that.
I mean, people will still want them, and there'll be reasons to have them.
Yeah, there is a good reason why we still put bayonets on our assault rifles even today.
Right. Well, occasionally you get in close quarters, you need to be able to take someone out quietly, etc., etc. All right, so we got that,
and they're cool.
Sure. All right. All right. Next question for you, though, Eric, is defensive technology. Then.
Yeah, that was. I was actually just going there. Do we have mechs? Do we have powered armor? Do we have just power assisted exoframes? Do we have body armor? What kind? Do we have personal force fields? That kind of deal.
Right. I'm not feeling the mecha in this sort of game.
And neither am I, honestly. And I will happily inject mecha into any game. Um,
Yeah, this is feeling sort of more sort of traditional sort of military type stuff.
yeah.
As cool as mecha are, they are kinda impractical.
I am inclined to go with
Oh, power armor's entirely
powered
different.
armor.
Yeah, power armor. I could totally see like elite troops using power armor. That makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
I can totally see like mobile infantry from Starship Troopers.
Absolutely,
The,
absolutely.
the book, not the movie. As awesome as Verhoeven movies it's I'm more talking about like the jump capable like mega super power armor, and that's something like yeah, you're not going to see that outside the military.
Right. So, like, the military has access to it, but basically nobody else does. There's probably body armor.
There's probably like stripped down versions of it available to everyone else.
Maybe. I guess it would depend on the culture too.
Yeah, like yeah, like you're not gonna get like a friggin' like Wobble death suit that can take on a tank battalion out in the wild, but like the average power suit that you see in most sci-fi, yeah, I can totally see that.
But at any rate, so we'll have battle suits exist, combat armor exists because duh, it's going
Yeah.
to. Personal force screens I'm leaning against.
Yeah, same here. I'm thinking, yeah, force fields are great for ships and the like, but like honestly, once you start having personal force fields, why the hell aren't you just using them as weapons?
Yep. So yeah, we'll go for there are some sort of defensive fields that are used that require massive quantities of power. Might even be tied into the gravitic drives of the ships.
Yeah.
Might be gravitic shields or something like that.
But yeah, I've always wondered when you have things like actual like force fields, why aren't you just using them to cut things to ribbons all the time?
Don't know. So
like it's such an obvious leap, and no one ever does it.
yeah, all right. So we got that. Okay, we've got. I don't think we need to go too deep into the actual nuts and bolts of the weapons technology and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is still on technology. Is faster than light communication? Does it exist?
That's a good question. You know what? I'm going to say no,
I'm going to agree with you on that.
because then you can build an entire really interesting campaign around being the male.
Yep. Like the only way you really get FTL communication is by sending ships through, either delivering mail through warp drive ships, or if you happen to be able to travel, have an entire route going through gates and wormholes.
Yeah, like you could set up FTL communication through the wormholes and gates.
Oh,
But
I've got a
yeah.
question for you, Eric.
Yeah.
Are the wormholes? Can you keep the wormholes and gates open all the time, or do they open and close at times?
I'm going to say open and close.
I
It can
was go-
probably induce a naturally occurring wormhole to open.
I was actually leaning more towards you can't induce, like, the wormholes have a schedule when they open and close. Gates can be open and closed at will, but it takes time to open.
Right.
I like that. That allows for some drama too.
Yeah.
Like if the players happen to be in a system where there's a gate and they fleeing at warp drive speeds won't get them away from the actual threat. They've got this they got to wait for their window for the gate to open for them to flee through that.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, so we got that, and that also affects the FTL communication too.
Right.
So okay, there we go. So no FTL communications. I like that. I think that's a really good idea. Okay, so we've got those basic concepts. So here's the next question, which is I think we really don't need to spend too much more time on technology at the moment. I think.
Okay.
We're trying to brainstorm up a basic sort of framework of a campaign. We're not trying to get the nitty-gritty details, obviously.
Right.
So the next question is, how many alien species are there out there?
Um, I'm inclined to go with like fucking dozens.
Okay, and some of
Like,
all right. So that's the first question. So there are a bunch of alien species out there. The next question is how many of them are individual actual powers?
yeah, that's the that's the big question there. Like, like we can have each of them be sovereign at least in their home world,
Okay.
but like they're going to be like actual powers with like several worlds.
So what I'm thinking is that there are a few major powers, some of whom are like just the one species, some of whom have several client species, and some maybe one of them has a bunch of subservient species that they've conquered. Depends entirely on their own governmental attitudes and their own sort of thing.
Right.
So like humanity would probably have things more like they've got sort of their major power because they've come on the scene. They're considered very dangerous. They're considered they're humanity's a military power that's come on the scene, but they're also a mercantile power because they've got sort of client species they trade with, and they feel that they need to represent, and they haven't they're not part of humanity's government, but they're allies and friends, and they speak for them. They make sure that their rights are looked for at the conference.
I'm reminded of a pull and ball comic where ISIS goes, "We will invade America." Pfft. Silly ISIS, go ahead and play in your sand, whatever. And also Canada, fuck you, ISIS.
So yeah, so so we got that. So that's sort of where I'm leaning towards with humanity. Is it's one of the many reasons that like they confuse a lot of the other aliens out there. Is
Right.
okay, they're one of the big military powers, but they also like treat a lot of they've got allies, whom they haven't like pulled into they haven't like conquered or in sort of worked into their government. They just like treat them as friends and allies and just work alongside them. The hell? How do they do this?
This makes no sense. They do not fit into any of our established psychological profiles.
Right, exactly.
The entire species is clearly insane.
So we got that. I'm thinking that one of the major powers is the other one that nobody wants to poke with the stick.
Yeah.
And I'm leaning towards making them even more different than humanity, and even more sort of inexplicable, and making them not carbon-based.
Let's go with a machine power.
I was thinking was sort of more along sort of the classic sort of silicon-based life form type thing, sort of like the Tholians from Star Trek.
Right.
So like they just they're and one of the reasons that nobody's really in major conflict with them is that they've got entirely different requirements for what they consider habitable worlds and all that sort of stuff. So they're not in actually direct conflict with anybody else in terms of over like habitable worlds or most resources that they need. Like there are a few resources everybody needs.
Right. Everyone needs metals for
Everyone needs metals. Everyone needs Woojamajogs for building Woojamajog stuff for building warp drives and and gates and such. But they the resources you need to keep yourselves alive are entirely different between this species and everybody else.
Yeah, and while this world might be rich in Woojamajog anium, it's completely impractical for a carbon-based species to harvest it.
Right. Whereas these guys are like, yeah, what? So the surface temperature is 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, sure.
Oh, that's balmy.
that's actually bordering on a little bit cool for us, or hot, or it's what have you. So we got that. Okay, I like that actually. And people are and the reason no one wants to fuck with them because they are really really good at warfare when they need to be.
Right.
It's just that there are two reasons nobody sort of annoys them. Is one, there isn't as just much natural conflict.
There's no reason to outside of ridiculous religious or what have you reasons.
Or if there's genuine conflict over a planet that both sides can make use of, which is rarer than most species. And the other reason is, here's the question: is the reason they're so good military because they're higher tech than other people, or because they're just so different?
Hmm. I want to keep the tech levels more or less equal across the board.
I'm all right. So it's something to do with them biologically,
or even psychology.
Yeah, something along those lines. It may just be tied to I'm thinking for a weird and wacky sort of thing, is that when you it much like humanity, they're harder to take down than other species physically, because breaking off part of them doesn't because they're one sort of solid,
Dude, you think humanity's bad? You shoot a human in the arm, that you just make them mad? Take the head off of one of these guys, and they just keep coming at you.
Yeah, they don't have they don't have a typical central.
They don't have a central nervous system.
Right.
Their nervous system is completely decentralized. Means that you can't put them into shock.
They're effectively organic computers.
Yeah.
So you break part of them off, you might slow down their processing speed, but they still function. They just reroute
that
processes.
Could be one of the things that makes them so different. Is the more of them that there are together, the smarter they are.
Possibly
as a network.
I wouldn't say necessarily smarter, but the more quickly they share information really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's not that they actually get smarter or think faster or anything like that. It's just that the quantity of information they have access to, they can shuffle the information between them much more quickly than anybody else, and they can communicate silently and instantly between themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that. I like that.
This is probably not a player species, given how physically different they are from
Yeah,
everyone
I'm leaning
else.
towards that they're one of the non-player species.
Simply because you cannot have one of these guys and a bunch of carbon-based life forms on the same ship.
Right. Their living environment is hostile to most other species.
Yeah, and vice versa.
So when you encounter them at the whatever as we said, the Citadel for time being,
right?
They'll be in environment suits because and they're entirely happy to do that because they're like, yeah, we acknowledge the fact that we're the only species with these living requirements, and this is supposed to be a place where all of us can work together equally.
They might even have a small quarter where they don't need the
absolutely. And that could lead to...
And which can be accessed with environmental suits.
Going the other way, yes.
Yeah, so you can go both ways.
Right. Okay. All right, so we got that. So those are two... So humanity and these guys are the two major powers. Are two of the major powers. Humanity being sort of fairly new on the block, these guys have probably been around a fairly long while, which is why they're... I actually have an idea, Eric.
Okay.
They're the ones who suggested the council.
Yeah.
They've been around a while, and everyone's sort of worried about them militarily, and they're the ones who looked at what humanity did and said, yeah, that's bad, and if we ever get into conflict with humanity, one of the two of us is probably going down for good. We should stave this off.
Or there could even have been something they've been suggesting for a long time, because a lot of your problems can be solved if you just communicate.
I like that.
And then everyone was like, "Wow, the humans really went nuts, and no one stepped up." Well, we would have if you had asked. Okay, maybe this council thing isn't such a bad idea. Like we've been saying.
And then when it suggested humanity's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And everyone's like, wait, what? But we're forming this because we're worried about you. And?
Well, I think you should be worried about us, and we're worried about you. So this way we can avoid problems, and everyone can be happy.
And then we can trade with each other, it'll be great.
And we can trade with each other, it'll be great, unless you don't want to trade. Do you not want to trade?
What do you mean? What?
Wow, I'm really starting to paint humanity as, like, Klingon Ferengi, aren't I?
Yeah, kinda. All right, so we got that. So we got those are two of the major species.
I think it would be really cool to have sapient mollusks.
All right.
Simply because on Earth, mollusks are like one of those weird, like, things don't fit in anywhere, and we've seen that a lot of octopi are actually exceptionally intelligent.
Yep.
I can totally see like a sapient species evolving out of that genus.
So something along the lines of like a sapient octopus
Yeah.
or squid or something like that.
Well, we're going to avoid the sapient bivalve because that's silly. Although we could have like
I don't know. The concept of sapient land squids is kind of awesome.
Yes.
I mean,
I like the idea of sapient land squid.
What?
I really like the idea of sapient land squid.
So it's not necessarily yeah, right, yes. So all right, so we got a sapient land squid. Yeah, I like it. And they're not particularly, the big thing is, and they're like, they're not particularly, they're not particularly tough because they're they're invertebrates.
They do heal quickly.
They heal quickly, but they're not particularly big or strong. They're not like huge land squids, and they've got more cartilaginous mass in them, so they can't really do the whole fit through small areas thing.
Right.
Like super tiny areas, because otherwise they really would sort of flop over and be sort of bloopy on outside of the water.
Yeah, but I like the idea. I do like the idea of them being like the big information brokers, though.
All right, I like it. So they're big into knowledge and information and trading, that sort of stuff. All right.
Yeah. In fact, most military conflicts comes from people refusing to share knowledge with them.
Right, like most of their conflicts. Okay, I like that.
It's like, why won't you tell us how to do that? Well, you won't tell us how to do this other thing. That's different. That's us. Why won't you tell us?
All right. So we got that. We got another one there. So, and we can spin also. So they're all about like information and knowledge, and they all. I sort of have a feeling that they always want to be one up on everybody else in terms of knowing things.
Yes.
So they're
absolutely.
So they probably are big into sort of espionage stuff also.
Yeah, they're big into the spy masters and whatnot, and for some reason you can always find them like. They always seem to have their tentacles into the local organized crime.
Okay.
Because that's part of the whole information network thing. Because who doesn't know about what's going on if not the criminals in the area?
All right, I like it. Let's see. We need at least one more major power, preferably two.
Yeah.
I think we want at least 5 major powers, so that you have a council of 5.
Yeah.
Which means that
way you don't have
don't have deadlock. It'll always break down at least 3 to 2.
Yeah. I do like the idea of a machine sapiens.
I do. I like it conceptually, but I'm not sure how well it fits in with all the rest of this. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
And the most annoying thing about the machine the machine power is that they really don't come down in favor of anyone. So you do end up with deadlocks, and it all becomes about lobbying the machine powers.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm leaning more towards less sort of actual like sentient like AI machine type things, and more sort of a people who are big into cybernetic modification.
Okay. So
they're big into technology and automation, all that stuff, but they aren't actually sapient machines. Because I think we've got the complete, utterly, totally aberrant and not human at all species covered really well both between the silicon race and the land squids.
Okay.
So we need something that's a little bit more sort of something that like people can sort of like the players can latch their minds onto a little bit more.
I don't know. I'm kind of interested in playing the sapient land squid.
Oh, they're great. I love them. I would totally play a sapient land squid, Eric. Especially as we've described them. I mean, come on. They're the spies and diplomats. I mean, come on.
Actually, you know what would be kind of cool? Is you have this race obsessed with technology and cybernetic enhancements, but they're probably the most bestial looking of them.
Okay, I like it.
Like that, they're big, they're hairy, they have these like that they've got snouts and big wedge-shaped ears and. Yeah, they look like friggin' I don't know, man, bear, pig.
Something they're big.
Not necessarily big, but they're
Okay,
shaggy and they're
right. So they are
they
they have something vaguely predatory, vaguely predatory about the way they look.
yeah.
Okay, and part of the reason they've actually started going down the whole path in like heavy cybernetic modification is because they've realized that they
It's
simply
cool.
well, it's not just that they physically can't take the punishment a lot of other species can.
Mm.
Like humanity, you can like blow a limb off of them, and they'll keep coming, and they'll survive that. And like and the crystalloids, they like you break them, and they're because they're decentralized nervous systems, they're like it annoys them.
And the squids aren't dumb enough to get into a conflict like that in the first place.
And if you don't manage to kill one, they'll eventually regenerate.
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll take them time, but like so like
Yeah, so
okay,
they're big into like
self modification to help.
yeah. So they've got like Kevlar skin weaves and like subdermal armor and
they probably got into all of this just as ways to enable them to survive getting themselves into space. Because they realized they had trouble dealing with the G-force.
I don't know about that. I think it's much more interesting if it was just a cultural thing.
Okay.
It started out like way back in their past as sort of like a fashion thing. It's like, look at me, I got a new cyber eye, isn't that cool? And it became a practical thing later on as they started.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I approve. All right, you talked me into that. I like it. So tying it back to sort of more cultural stuff.
Yeah.
All right, sure.
It became a more practical thing, like muscle enhancements and dermal weaves and all that other shit. But it was initially just sort of it was just a cultural thing. Like of course I've got a direct neural uplink thing. It helps me at work.
All right, I've got something for them also.
Okay.
I like the idea of them being sort of bestial and like basically screaming predator bit basically every species that runs into them except for the crystal guys, because the crystal guys have no.
Hey, look! It's another meat thing. You look a lot like the other meat things, except maybe with less limbs and more hair.
Whatever, sure. But that's their reaction. Like their reaction, yeah, whatever. But everyone else, like, oh my god, they're deadly predators, and but they're like the ones who are least likely to initiate conflict.
Yeah.
They're actually like they're like no we don't want to get into conflict with you. We're not. They're constantly. It's like they're sort of complete contrast to their actual appearance. But like every time they've been in conflict, they act really decisively and like prefer to strike from ambush and stuff like that.
Right.
But they generally avoid conflict if they can at all possibly do so.
Despite their monstrous appearance, they're actually really cuddly.
Basically, yeah. They're like everyone. Like once you get to know them, like
cybernetic space teddy bears.
Once you get to them, you realize that these might be the nicest, the nicest of all the major powers. Like everyone they've effectively conquered, they've worked in gently and gradually to becoming full functioning members of their society.
Right.
If they have species that are part of their society, I have no idea if they do yet. Then we need someone to be the belligerent power, though.
We need space orcs, is what you're saying.
Effectively, but
They're space hobgoblins.
They've been brought to the table reluctantly to the council. So I'm guessing that they probably have a very wide range of planets they can live on and environments they can cope with. So they're constantly conflicting like everybody for habitable worlds and resources and such.
Yeah. You know what? Let's go whole hog with the space orc analogy. Let's actually make them like the one species that's actually like scarier physically than humanity. So
they're physically scary, but they don't have the same sort of mindset for war that humans do.
Right.
They're aggressive.
They are very much a scream and leap kind of species.
Right. And so so they are physically. They're not necessarily physically tough, but they're physically dangerous. They're fast. They're probably fairly tough.
Yeah. No, I'm saying let's go whole hog. Let's make them fast, strong, and tough. Just not very mentally flexible.
All right, so they're not flexible mentally. All right, okay,
yeah.
We can go with that. And they're sort of they've come to the table because they've realized, like they saw what humanity they saw what humanity did to what the previous major power that was in the area was. And they're like, ooh.
Let's say it was them. Let's say it was them that whose ass humanity kicked.
Uh, I thought we were going with something that humanity rebuilt, and they probably wouldn't. That probably wouldn't lead to them being a major power still. Although maybe, actually, they could have been the major power until humanity basically took them down a major peg.
Yeah.
And they are completely befuddled by humanity helping them rebuild.
Yeah. Like, they don't get it. It's like, no, we're enemies. Yes, but now you've got, like, ships again. Right, and we'll use them to crush you. No. You want to use them to trade goods and services with us. To crush you. No. This isn't how commerce works. But crushing, we're not. We already crushed you. We're not interested in doing that anymore.
Oh, here's the thing: is the reason they're not initiating a new conflict with humanity right now is they lost. They know they lost, and culturally they can't they can't start a conflict with someone they've lost to immediately. They can't just do an unprovoked attack on them. They're like, no, culturally, it's like psychologically they just can't do that.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Humanity, as far as they were expecting humanity to dominate them. And humanity hasn't done that. And they're very confused by that.
Yes.
They're like, the next step is humanity either wipes us out or they conquer us. They did neither.
Or they enslave us, because that's what we do. And clearly that's the appropriate reaction. Why are they helping us rebuild? This doesn't make any sense.
So they're currently looking for a good reason that they find culturally acceptable to go to war with humanity again to basically get their honor back, or not necessarily their honor, but get their sort of place on the galactic stage back and become the big dogs again, as it were.
Right.
Okay. What do they physically look like is the question.
I was actually just noodling on that. I almost want to go reptilian, but that's sort of like...
Yeah, it's a little bit too trite.
It's cliche.
Yeah.
And the same with going with space bugs.
Yeah. I mean, I think there should be some space bugs out there, but I think there should be like a client species of one of the other people.
Yeah.
Maybe they're clients of... Maybe they're like a client species of the squids.
Let's still keep them being like sort of hulking and hunched, but whatnot. But let's give them like multiple mandibles type of thing.
All right.
As long as their mouths are closed, they're not, and their expression is neutral, they actually look remarkably humanoid. But once they start talking, the jaw splits in weird ways and all this other stuff, and they're actually really psychologically creepy for humans to deal with.
Okay. So, like, at first glance, humans sort of like, okay, they're not, oh my god!
Yeah.
like you, until you actually, like, really meet their eyes, you don't notice that their eyes are very strange. Like, they don't have, like, normal eyes, they have nictitating eye membranes instead. So they never blink.
They have multiple pupils in each eye.
Like, and they never blink, because they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They just have clear nictitating membranes, and like their teeth are so their jaws are very different. I'm guessing they're probably omnivores too, like humanity is.
Yeah.
Just because it makes it easier for them. It makes supplying themselves easier and such.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of them looking like, at first glance, to be like an oddly colored Arnold Schwarzenegger. An oddly colored, hairless Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then they start talking, and their jaws do weird things, and you see their teeth, and then you look at their eyes, and it's like, what is wrong with you guys?
And I like the idea of them being like they would be taller, but they're sort of hunched over.
Yeah.
Maybe like long, powerful arms. Yeah, I like that. Maybe sort of almost vaguely ape-like, sort of, but definitively.
But not in an unattractive way.
Right.
I like the idea of them not being terribly ugly, because we already have the two ugly species with the cyber bears and the land squids.
I really like the land squids.
The land squids are really cool.
All right, so we got them.
Batman Oreo actually brings up an interesting parallel, the insects from Mimic.
Okay.
Like
I vaguely know about that.
Yeah. It's one of Del Toro's first American movies, actually.
I'm aware of that. I haven't watched it.
Okay.
Wasn't really my style. You know, the basic concept for it wasn't really one of the cups of tea.
It's right up my alley, honestly.
I know.
But yeah, back to the subject at hand. Okay, so we've got we've got space orcs, squid gangsters, cyber bears, computer rocks, and what was the other one?
And humanity.
Oh yeah, and humans. Stupid humans.
All right, so those are the major powers. So we're going to be going a bit long today, I think. Just because,
oh geez, it's already 8:14.
Yeah, but I do want to touch on. So that's the basic framework for the campaign. We'll fill. We would from this point we'd fill in a bunch of the minor race, the less powerful races.
Yeah,
where they fit in with everybody else. But in the interest of time, I do want to touch on a few things before we wrap up. So the question is, what sort of campaign would you want to do in this universe at this point? So we've got, basically you've got humanity humanity, which I don't know. So I guess we should touch briefly on the government types. I mean, humanity, I'm guessing is some sort of, effectively democracy type thing, because that seems to be the way it is. Or
benevolent oligarchy, which seems to be the direction we're moving in.
But not just that. It's the way most sci-fi humanity goes in most sci-fi plays, right? Games,
yeah.
Most sci-fi universes. Either that or some sort of benevolent, monarchy type thing. Either or. Although, who knows? They may not be completely benevolent. I mean, again, we've touched on that humanity's not that benevolent in this universe.
Yeah.
They're very sort of humanity's aggressive in a very different way than the other species. They're aggressive from a mercantile standpoint.
Yeah.
And all their conflict basically boils down to, basically they're trying to establish, a favorable trade relation with somebody, and eventually diplomacy breaks down.
Kind of like colonial England, actually.
Yeah. And eventually, and when that breaks down, they just say, okay, fine, we'll kick your asses, and then you'll trade with us.
Hey, China, you want to buy our opium? No, why would you want to buy our opium? Also, we want to buy your tea. We don't want to sell you tea or buy You do now!
Right. All right, so we got that. So I'm leaning towards So yeah, we got that. But the important sort of political structure, actually right now, the important political structure is focused around the council.
Right.
I'm leaning towards it being sort of centralized planet that nobody really cares that much about, other than the fact it's sort of central to all the races.
Mm.
It's like every race can get to it reasonably easily. It might just be that it's that it happens to be a hub for a bunch of naturally occurring wormholes.
Let's actually have the system have no real planets. So what they did was they built an artificial station there, or
right.
You know what, the orbitals from whatchamacallit, the culture books by Ian M. Banks.
Okay.
Let's use that model because it's a really cool model that not enough other science fiction uses.
Well, it sort of turned into effectively Babylon 5 there.
Yeah. Well,
which is
the
fine.
orbitals are more like artificial worlds. They just build the equilateral band and build everything on the inside of that and spin it to keep the atmosphere in.
Well, it shouldn't be too. I don't think
it shouldn't be too big. No,
it shouldn't be too big. And the thing is, I'd like it to be big because the reason I went with planet is I'd like it to be big. Because we need room for all the species, and especially for the crystal guys, because they need their own environment. And also, if it's big, it means that it's a good place to set adventures and stuff.
Right.
And making it into it should either be a large space station or a sort of planet that they built a big sort of city on.
Yeah.
Like a lifeless rock of a planet that has no use for resources.
With like a friggin' 40K hive city on Earth.
Effectively, yeah. So it's like it's a rock that nobody cares about because the system. The only reason any of the systems at all the only useful thing about the system is that all the major powers can get to it easily.
Yeah.
and there's like no useful resources there, and there's one planet that there's a planet that they could build a sort of a as you said, a hive city type thing on, a big city on, big self-contained city where they can use as a central trade hub, effectively trade and diplomatic hub.
In fact, let's have it so that the city's really old. No one actually knows who actually built it.
Oh, okay.
It's just always been part of like galactic society for exactly these reasons.
Like it's okay. Like there's an old sort of an ancient city that was there that was stumbled across with like no leftover technology, just the actual buildings.
Or not even that. It's just something that like it's always been there. And like if you go digging their history records, you can probably figure out who built it. But it's always just been a major hub for that reason.
Okay, that leaves open some possible sort of exploration mystery type stuff too. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is at that point. So we got that, and we got the Council of Five, and which is humanity, the squids, the crystals, the cyber bears, and the whatever.
And the space orcs.
The space orcs, whatever we end up calling them. And they all that's where the council meets. And as we said, these space orky types are the ones who were the last to the table.
Yeah.
Because they're first off, they're like, okay, they've got the whole problem with humanity, and they're like, why? Like they're thoroughly they're like, why were we not conquered by them? And now that we've not been conquered by them, why were we invited to the table? And C, why do we care about the table? I mean, this is totally against everything. Fine, well, humanity's going, and they're the ones who basically said,
well, if humanity is going, then we're going, because clearly that's just got to be the way it is. Because fuck those guys, can't let them have their fucking council.
And also, and the Silicoids are the ones who put it together, and they invited us. We can't offend them; they will just crush us. We know we've been in conflict with them before, and that went really badly. We attacked them, they crushed anything we sent against them, and they just said, stop it. And we said, okay, we can't beat them right now. They're not they're not even trying to conquer us.
These guys are weird.
And they haven't had the opportunity to go to war with either the cyber bears or the squids.
Right.
All right.
There's probably been several stalled attempts to go to war with the cyber squids, but they're just sort of like...
The cyber bears are like, no, go away.
No, I'm talking about the squids, and the squids are just like... oh, sure, yeah. You should totally go to war with those guys. Let's you and them fight. Yeah! Wait a minute. Weren't we angry with you? No. Okay.
No, we don't have anything you wanted. They did. Well, they do have stuff we want.
Do have stuff we want. Do like things.
And the squids absolutely love the council. Like the squids were probably also since Chris has been pushing this idea, the squids were probably behind it also for a long. Like they were interested in it for a long time. But they're like, well, yes, this will centralize people and be easier to trade information and for us to spy on everybody. I mean, totally no, we're not spying on anyone.
We are not spying. That would be wrong.
All right, and so there are any number of different type of campaigns you can set in this. I mean, you can have you can have a small mercenary type campaign for these small sort of brush conflicts that break out between various peoples. Down to, as you mentioned, like the whole mail courier campaign, which could be fascinating. Trade-based campaign of any sorts, or people operating at the Citadel, whatever we end up, the actual name for it ends up being.
Yeah.
So people, it's just
you could easily do a space pirate campaign.
Absolutely. Honestly, it's very likely that there's a very small sort of military/police force that has been established with the Citadel that's like multicultural.
Yeah.
To deal with deal with crime and piracy specifically.
Yeah. So having so you could even do
the Rangers, effectively, the Space Rangers.
Yeah, Space Cops.
Specifically to deal, they probably formed because there was a piracy problem, and they need somebody. And no species really was interested in letting like someone else's navy into their territory to hunt down pirates. So they all agreed that if there was a neutral a neutral police force to do that, that was had representatives from every species. I like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that'd be playing members of the patrol would be actually a really cool campaign also.
Yeah. For a campaign in this world, I'm inclined to go with a quasi-legal trade game.
There's that also. I like that one too. But that's one of the things I love about a sci-fi campaign is that once you build the universe, there's so many different ways you can go with a campaign there, and you really can build it to the taste of the players. So, like as I said, I think the major sort of campaign seed ideas that I can see from this campaign world is one, as we said, the quasi-legal sort of trade mercantile type campaign. There's definitely places for exploration, just exploration on the planet where the Citadel is. Because, as we said, it's a very old building. That's an old city that's been around for as long as any species can remember. And there's tons of things that you can explore in that and try to figure out who built it. Why was it built?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some dark secrets there that no one's aware of. And then there's, as I said, the people who deliver the mail and the possible conflicts that would lead with that. The Space Patrol campaign would be great.
Yeah, actually.
And as would a Space Pirates campaign. And just the conflict between the pirates and the patrol is just a great little concept. The other one I was thinking of was, and there's also just playing a criminal campaign on the Citadel. I think it'd be kind of cool, sort of the underworld on the Citadel. And the last one I was thinking of was basically the players are all playing like attachés of the various diplomats, and sort of doing a more diplomatic campaign and sort of dealing with the negotiations and all that sort of stuff. For players who are interested in that sort of thing, I think that could be really cool too. So there are all sorts of opportunities for lots of different campaign types. And I think we really don't have much more time to go further, unfortunately, today.
Yeah, we kind of we're an extra 50% this week.
Yeah, I do want to answer the one of the questions we got.
Okay.
It may take too long. I don't know yet. Let's see. This is from Oliver, and he writes kind of a biggish question. Oh dear. But do you guys have any particular races that aren't typically or ever playable in an RPG that you wish were? For example, I've always liked the idea of playing a fairy/pixie character, but I never found any good rules for it outside of just straight up writing my own, which would take more time than I want to spend on a single character. Anyways, love the show. Keep up the good stuff.
I think the answer there is obviously I love orcs. I don't get to play them enough. I've always thought it would be really interesting to play the giant sapient bug.
Right.
And you don't see a lot of those as written up species.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's one of those things you don't see very often. The sentient insects, like the Thrycreen in Dark Sun, are one of the few examples I can think of off the top of my head.
They're the only example I can think of off the top of my head.
I mean, in the Sci-Fi, the space opera campaign I was running with you guys, I had the Scrix, but they weren't. The
Scrix really weren't playable, is that?
No, they weren't. They were intentionally not.
Yeah. Yeah, like you hardly ever see giant bugs as a playable race. I'd love to play that, something like that.
Yeah.
Also trolls, because trolls are typically just too powerful for most things, and dumb.
Yeah. I can't really think of one off the top of my head that I would be particularly interested in that I've not been able to play. Honestly, I mean,
one of these days I'm going to play in a Supers game, and I'm going to convince them to let me play the cursed troll idea, because that's a concept I'm still utterly in love with.
I guess the only thing I can think of is one sort of ties in ones we came up with for this campaign. I've always thought it'd be sort of interesting to play sort of a sentient arthropod,
Yeah.
like a sentient octopus or squid, And there's so many. It'd have to be something that would evolve to survive on land somehow, just to make it playable.
Unless you're doing like an Aquaman campaign,
right? I mean, admittedly, I did have in one of the Champions campaigns I ran. We did. One of the players played Liberty Octopus, who was basically sort of a Captain America type, but was an octopus who was a martial artist.
Which is an awesome idea.
Liberty Octopus was badass. That's all I'm gonna say.
I've got so many extra limbs.
He was a martial artist with 8 limbs and stretching. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And could squirt ink at people.
Wow, I totally forgot about the ink squirting.
Surprisingly effective.
Yeah, I'm all about playing monsters of some sort, and there's rarely the option to play something truly monstrous. So yeah.
So honestly, for me, I've gotten to play most of the type of stuff I'd want to play. I honestly would like to play. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head, you know. So I hope that answered your question. I mean, honestly, there's just there are a bunch like I've most of the races I find most interesting. I've actually seen good write-ups for here and there. So
yeah, like games. I did actually get to play as a Games Workshop orc in one game.
Mm-hmm.
That game didn't go well, but I got to be an orc, complete with a grot sidekick. It was kind of awesome.
Excellent. All right. I think we might have one more question. I think we have one more question. Let me see if we since we're going long, might as well do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's from Jacob, the guy who asked us about who prompted the sandbox campaign thing.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he asked her as a follow. His question is, specifically for a certain system. Jacob's running a Dark Crusade game and had a very hard time figuring out how the game uses infamy and how I should distribute this resource in game. Long shot I know, but this one is driving me nuts. This one is entirely for Eric since I know nothing about Dark Crusade. Go.
I don't know enough about Dark Crusade to be able to help you out. I've played Rogue Trader and Dark Heresy. I haven't played Black Crusade. So I don't know. I did not even know there was an infamy mechanic. It makes sense given you're playing Chaos Cultists and Chaos Marines and whatnot, but yeah, I can't help you, dude. I imagine you treat it like Reputation that you'd have in say Shadowrun or something, where it's almost like a secondary experience that you can expend to. I don't know anything about this system. I'm just pulling shit out of my ass.
So the answer to that is sorry, Jacob. Neither of us know enough about the system to be able to answer your question. I'm terribly sorry.
My inclination is that you treat it like Reputation. But again, this is just an educated guess pulling crap out of my ass.
Right. All right. I think that's going to do it for this week, though. We didn't get quite as detailed a campaign as we did with the fantasy game, but I think that's partially due to the nature of sci-fi.
There aren't as many. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Common tropes.
Fair enough.
Or there isn't really a common framework beyond space.
Right. So, and honestly, there's a lot more work you'd need to do to sort of flesh that out. But I think as a campaign seed idea, I think we got a good thing there. So.
Yeah.
Anywho, guys, thanks for watching today. I hope you all had fun. I hope you found this interesting and helpful for any time you guys for anyone who decides to work up a sci-fi campaign out of whole cloth. If you want to borrow ideas from that, please do. And if you do, let us know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Anywho, that's going to do it for this week. We, as you guys heard, we love answering questions at the end of the show submitted by the viewers. So if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, we try to save time at the end of each episode to answer them. So if you do, send them. You can email them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com.
Oh, and Ratman. I've always wanted to play Ratman, and I haven't had the opportunity. Sorry.
And I got to do it in the sci-fi. And I've gotten to do it.
Yes. Yeah, but those aren't rat men. Those are like cuddly. Those aren't the kind of rat men I want to play.
I've got to do it twice. I got to play. I actually I briefly played a Nezumi in a very brief Legend of the Five Rings game.
That's a game system I've never played.
I don't like the system very much.
Okay.
I like the world, but I don't like the system. But anyways, so if you've got questions, you can email us, as I mentioned, or you can hit us up on our forums, which you can find at mechagm.forumer.com. Additionally, if you've got feedback for us, constructive criticism, ways we can make the shows better, we'd love getting that stuff.
We really do.
So send it to us at either of those places. If you've got show topic suggestions, we love that almost as much as we love feedback.
Yeah.
So
all that stuff is good.
It's all great. So you can email it to us, hit us up on the forums, all of that jazz. We record the show every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/mechagm. You can find previous recordings of the show on YouTube, which you can find at youtube.com/mechagm. I fire a tweet out before the show goes live. Keep an eye on my Twitter, which is at mechagm. You can hit me up there for any questions or anything like that. Also, that's going to do it for this week, however. So thanks for watching. I hope you all had fun, as I said. I hope you found something useful in what we were talking about today. And that's going to do it. So until we see you guys next, be happy, be safe, keep on gaming, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care and have a great evening.
Bye, humans.